Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Christopher Dorn. I'm here with Brianna McKinney, and thanks for joining us for this webinar, 5 Ways to Expand Your Patient Base with Marketing Automation. A couple housekeeping items before we get started. We are recording this, so we will be providing a link afterwards if you want to share it with your friends or your family this weekend. Feel free. I'm sure they'll love it. We're going to take questions at the end. So there is a question bar on the GoToWebinar link on the right-hand side. So submit your questions. We have some great ones that have already been submitted to us that we're going to cover that we'll mention in a moment. And finally, any questions that we don't get a chance to answer, we'll be posting on our blog over the next several days, and we'll notify you when those are been answered.
Great. And thanks to those of you who registered early and filled out our survey. That was really helpful for us. And based on the responses, it seems that about 62% of our audience today is not currently using marketing automation. And some of the marketing challenges that you guys shared fall into some of these categories. We've got increasing the frequency with which you communicate with prospects, automating your communications, increasing email click rates, proactively engaging new customers, qualifying leads, and reporting. So we received a lot of responses and questions, and what we've done is we've done our best to incorporate them into the content that we're going to be sharing today. But as Christopher mentioned, we will answer other specific questions when we get to the end.
So let's kick things off. So a little bit about myself. Let me just move forward here. There we go. So my name is Christopher Dorn. I'm CEO of Envato Solutions. I've been a marketer and a marketing automation leader for the past 15 years or so. I spent 8 years as CMO at a Pardot competitor, a company called Manicore Technology. I guess there's a saying that if you can't beat them, join them. So in that role, I was not only doing all the marketing for the company, but I was also helping develop best practices around how to use marketing automation. This was, pretty new at the time, and now it's really hit critical mass out there, where it's almost a $2 billion industry now. I was actually spent 3 years as a senior director of marketing at Salesforce.com, and then I left Salesforce and founded Envato Solutions in 2013. And what we do is quite simple: is help companies with their marketing technology. It's no longer just easy to be a marketer and talk about brand and content. Technology is a huge part of that. So what we focus on is really helping companies like yourselves figure out technology, what their technology looks like, and really how to get value from it.
Great. And I'm Brianna McKinney. I'm president of Bloom Communications. We have offices in Austin and in Portland, and Christopher and I are coming to you today live from Austin. My background is I spent my early career in technology and lifestyle marketing, and then I was a partner and co-owner of a PR agency and PR training institute. And I founded Bloom Communications in 2012, and we specialize in PR, marketing, and market research. And we work with clients in a variety of industries, but we happen to specialize in healthcare and life sciences and nonprofit.
I think it's interesting to note that the way we work together is really around, we focus on the technology, and Bloom really focuses a lot on content and personas and things like that. And as we go through this journey over the next half hour or so, I think it's important to think about these two come together and how your team addresses these two challenges and bringing these components together. Because in terms of the technology and marketing automation working, you really need these two skill sets.
Right. And just so you guys have a little bit more background on our healthcare experience, so we've worked with healthcare delivery systems all the way from private practice up to large provider-owned clinic systems, including managed care and senior citizen focus. We've also worked with hospitals and hospital districts and health insurance plans, including Medicare Advantage, just so you can kind of get a little bit of an idea of our experience level in the healthcare marketing space. So before we dive into the nuts and bolts of marketing automation, let's start off by looking at some of the business objectives that are common to those of you in the healthcare industry. You'll also want to consider the different types of audiences that you need to reach in order to obtain new patients. You've, of course, got opportunities directly with prospective patients, but also indirectly through caregivers and referring physician relationships. So each of these audience types will need to be managed and nurtured in a different way. Fortunately, audience and message segmentation and delivery is really easy with marketing automation, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But getting back to objectives, we know that even the most high-performing campaigns don't immediately convert 100% of the prospects and patients that express some sort of interest in your campaign. And this is where marketing automation can come into play and help you manage ongoing communication with prospects and move them along in the sales funnel. So let's look at increasing existing patient lifetime value. The goal at the end of the day is to drive incremental revenue. So you want to stay top of mind as the go-to provider, maybe cross-sell with some complementary service promotions. And then, of course, increasing patient conversions and getting new patients in the door to increase your revenue. That is also, something that marketing automation can help with. And then increasing existing patient retention. Once you've got them in the door, you want to promote long-lasting loyalty. So Bain & Company released a study that showed that just a 5% increase in customer retention can increase a company's profitability by 25 to 95%. That's pretty huge. So you want to protect your investment and use marketing automation not only to attract new patients, but also to keep existing patients engaged and coming back more regularly. And you can also use automation to encourage word-of-mouth referrals. And lastly, something that isn't talked about often enough in marketing automation is the idea of reducing risk. One of the outcomes of staying in touch with patients on a regular basis using automation is that you can send out relevant educational materials that follow their progress, right? And therefore, you can hopefully expect a decrease in readmission rates. We know that this is something, especially these days, many physicians, surgeons, and hospitals are now even being graded on. So anything you guys can do to automate and support the process is great. And then recalling patients for follow-up attention is more than just good marketing. It's really an essential aspect of good medical care. In fact, as you know, a practice could even be faced with a potential malpractice case if it doesn't bring certain patients back. Moving on to the next slide. So let's look at what a typical patient journey could look like with marketing automation. As the patient moves from awareness to consideration, acquisition, retention, and advocacy, it's really important to note that there are different ways to nurture leads as they move through this patient journey. And lead nurturing is especially important. I think that most of you today are in elective healthcare services. And so it's especially important in these situations because your biggest competitor is really status quo. It's doing nothing. It's just living with whatever you need to because it's not a medical condition. It's something that you're choosing to make a change in. So you want to base your content and touches on where the lead is in the consideration funnel, and then keep your brand in front of them so that when they finally decide to make a change, you're the one they call. For example, looking at the awareness stage, you can use search data to figure out what kind of content you should create, right? And that can help you increase your search traffic. In the consideration stage, you want to consider leveraging social proof. And by social proof, I mean patient success stories, provider reviews, educational content that's really relevant to their level of interest. And when I say patient success stories, I'm not talking about testimonials. Those are interesting, but really patient success stories, or have the patient talk about how their life changed because of the service that you provided. So what was their life like before and how has it been enhanced since? And then in acquisition, so some people, don't feel comfortable choosing a provider. It's such a consumer market these days. They don't feel comfortable choosing a provider until they've had some sort of engagement with them. So maybe invite them to a live chat with a doctor online or a webinar event so they can see if they might get along with this provider. And then retention. Post-discharge, remind them through automation to schedule a follow-up visit. Send them to the patient portal or give them the phone number to call to do so. And then you can continue to share educational content that's relevant to their interests or concerns. And then special offers. So, try to cross-sell them. And is there, another service that could be complementary to the one that you already provided? And then finally, encourage word-of-mouth referrals. So, patients have gotten so accustomed to receiving targeted content, special offers, and automated communication from, think about other retailers and travel brands related to the transactions that they're having. So The same thing can happen in healthcare. These types of programs are just really effective at selling additional products and services back to an existing customer base. So now you can deliver the same personalized digital experience to patients and achieve even better marketing results using automation. And providing relevant and timely content not only demonstrates to patients that you care about them as individuals, but that you're also conscientious about providing a better overall patient experience. It basically continues that one-to-one, provider-patient experience outside of the exam room. So, in sum here, ensure your messaging is consistent across all channels. Be where your patients expect you to be when they expect you to be there. And likewise, deliver a consistent message, as consistency builds that credibility. So with that, I will turn it over to Christopher so we can take you through a sample lead nurturing process flow.
So keeping in mind the business objectives that Brianna mentioned, right? Increasing conversion, customer satisfaction, and engaging your customer. This is where the technology of marketing automation really comes in. And the question is, how do we use this to actually drive a process? So on the technology side, it's really about process. So you'll see here, I took the opportunity to actually build a process flow diagram. This is, it's amazing. Like a lot of customer or clients we work with are using Google AdWords and other technologies to generate leads. If they don't buy immediately, well, what happens? So, I have one client right now that's spending $10,000 a month, and I ask them how many deals are they closing, and they have absolutely no idea. They know how many clicks they got, but have no clue how many deals they're closing. So that's a problem that we work to address. So if we start at the top of the process here, right, we have Google AdWords coming in, and that's going to drive people to landing pages, right? And we want to test those landing pages, do comparisons of which ones are working. But then we have to ask ourselves, how many are these generating qualified prospects? If they say yes, okay, we want an advisor to engage them. We're going to go down the right-hand side here. Was the patient acquired? If yes, well, then we want to put them into a nurture campaign, right? That talks about customer satisfaction, sharing those stories, continuing the dialogue, right? Like Brianna mentioned, right? How do we make sure that we're building a relationship with them and a rapport with them over time? They become your biggest advocates. But what if they didn't buy, right? Then we're on the right-hand side. Well, then we want to nurture that relationship by delivering valuable content over time, talking about patient success stories. How do you build that trusted relationship over time? And this is where marketing automation solutions like Pardot can continue that in an automated fashion. Because again, the idea with the technology is that you're not doing this in a manual fashion. We're going to save a lot of time and a lot of effort by moving that through the funnel. But what if the prospect did not buy from that Google AdWords, right? That's usually where most people fall short. They're like, okay, well, they didn't buy. We're going to move forward. Our life moves forward. Well, what we're going to do with marketing automation and lead nurturing is continue that dialogue. We're going to use targeted content that Brianna alluded to actually deliver that. What was that prospect interested in? Were they interested in reconstruction? Were they interested in different topics, different services that you offer? Great, we're going to know that because we're going to track the Google AdWords that they were interested in. Or say, aha, okay, this prospect was interested in this service, so we're going to put them in a nurture track that only talks about this. This other prospect was interested in something different, so we're going to put them in a different nurture track. And this is where the lead nurturing comes in, and it's extremely valuable to continue that, and the ROI can be massive. Don't let this be intimidating. I know some of you on the call are very advanced, and this might seem simple, but some of you might just be getting going. Start small. This could be, one touch, right? If they didn't buy, let's send them one follow-up email, and then grow, grow, grow. So this is a journey. This is not about a destination. When we work with clients, it's really about where you're at today and how can we begin to build out from. For building charts like this, a quick aside, I love the Lucid chart. It's free, and you could build these diagrams and then add to them as you grow and you get more complex. And this is really where the value is, and using systems like Salesforce.com could add a ton of value.
Great. So, as Christopher and I discussed, just to reiterate, even the most high-performing campaigns don't immediately convert all prospects. So, using marketing automation, it's really easy to continue that personalized conversation. So as Christopher mentioned, you've got people that respond to different ads and different types of communications in different ways. So, you can use segmentation to better educate patients or prospective patients on their symptoms, perhaps their related conditions, and help them understand their provider and treatment options and encourage them to take action. So Automated lead nurturing programs really ensure that your healthcare brand stays top of mind by delivering content that prospective patients both find relevant and useful. So it's really cost effective and efficient way to increase measurability and long-term ROI for campaigns. So really what segmentation does is allow you to show your prospect that you know and understand them. For example, you wouldn't send a communication to a patient that is interested in breast enhancement, for example, we wouldn't send them information on high-risk pregnancy services. They would find that that's completely irrelevant to their situation and might disengage with your brand. So segmentation just really helps you deliver the right message to the right prospect at the right time. And one of the concerns that you guys shared in the survey was, how do we increase our email click rate? Well, this is one of the ways you can do that is through providing really targeted, relevant content and timely content through segmentation.
That's a great point. So how do we deliver that content, and how do we know what content to deliver? I have an interest, Brianna has an interest. Well, we need to automate that process. We can't sit there and just figure that out. And this is where using technology could add a tremendous value in that we're going to build profiles of individuals and say, if they meet these criteria, then let's put them in this bucket. Let's call it bucket A. And if they're in this criteria, let's call it bucket B and C. And using technology, what we could do is build out these personas and automatically bucketize people based on their interests and their behaviors and the demographic. Let's say we have a bucket for white males with a certain certain income level, and African American females with another segmentation. This could all be done through the automation, but it's really important because if we're going to build a meaningful relationship with people, we need to understand this. It gets down to everything from the written content to imagery to when you deliver the content, right? You'll have a certain delivery time for a certain group and another one for a different group. So this is where using solutions like Salesforce.com can add a huge value in building that trusted relationship. Because if we remember, our goals here are how do we build that on an ongoing basis and increase our conversions and our customer satisfaction. In order to do that, you need to look at segmenting the audience appropriately. So now the question is, once we're segmenting and we have these leads coming in, we're going to, tip number 3 is really looking at using lead scoring to identify which opportunities are ready to buy and which ones are ready to work with you and which ones may not be. And what we're going to do is use criteria that we mentioned in the segmentation, such as everything from Google search terms. We're able to track organic search terms that people are using to get to your site. If you're putting a lot of money in SEO, you want to know, well, which ones are working, which ones aren't. We're going to actually tie that and link that to an individual. That someone came in and looked for Botox services. Well, that's great because we're going to score them higher, and we know that they're probably going to buy in a shorter amount of time. So we're going to have that in the back of our mind, and we're going to provide that to an advisor so they know when they're picking up the phone what this person's pain point was and with their level of interest. And we're going to use scoring to actually prioritize leads and inbound interest so that your advisors know who to talk to and what to talk to them about. Right now, the beauty of digital marketing is it's really a knob, right? You can turn the knob and begin to generate leads through pay-per-click, search engine. It's a variable. But how do you know then which ones to prioritize for your advisors and or sales reps to follow up with? And that's where we're going to use lead scoring. We're actually identify which ones are taking the most active behavior, which ones fit your demographic the best, and we're going to raise them to the top, right? We're going to put them in a list and use the reporting mechanisms to actually say, hey, here is your most qualified individual, and here's your least qualified prospect. So they can start from the top, and what this leads to is huge efficiency gains so that people know who to talk to and what to talk to them about.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's also important to note, that, we talk a lot about Google AdWords and Google search terms and things like that, but it's also important to note that, your leads could be coming from all kinds of other channels, and they really should be too. You should be using a multi-touch, multi-channel campaign in order to drive people online to then convert to be a part of your database. So these could be things like, a direct mail campaign that maybe is highlighting a new provider that you have in the area, showing, people that are around your location, we've got this new provider, come by this, they've got, same day appointment availability. And, anything from, like I said, direct mail to social to PR, to print, TV, and radio and online ads too. So think about all of those things and how they push people online. And you want to be able to track some of those things as well.
So the fourth way to expand your base is in terms of putting the right technology in place is really looking at integrating your applications. We are telling a story as marketers. We're looking to tell a story from inbound lead all the way to closed deal, and then all the way to engaging that customer, building a long-term trusted relationship. If your systems are not talking to each other, that becomes a major hurdle. And we end up doing a lot of work with Salesforce.com, and that because it does become an integrated platform. And there is no one solution out there that meets all your needs, but there's lots of individual solutions that come together that can meet your needs. And so what what quite often we'll look at a technology stack that looks like this, and there's lots of different pieces where the core will actually become the Salesforce.com platform for just CRM and sales. But then we're actually going to pull in the marketing automation piece as well. So they're bidirectionally syncing, really tight integration. We're nurturing leads. We're updating people's information back and forth. We're tracking closed deals. We're actually getting great reporting on what marketing is doing. But there's other pieces to this story, right? And what I love, like what we work with our clients on and quite often find is there's these different pieces that they have needs around. So for example, if you're doing webinars and education pieces, you might want to have GoToWebinar integrated. Well, that's integrated with the marketing automation piece of Salesforce. If you're doing live events, well, there's Eventbrite. Eventbrite allows you to track and manage registrations and reminders and integrate that as well. So you can integrate that all the way over to your advisor team so they know what events these people are going to. If you're doing direct mail, printsf.com allows you to do direct mail. So you can personalize that and deliver the right content, right? A lot of this is, again, it's about delivering the right content in imagery and words to that audience. If we're doing the right segmentation, you can actually send that information. And then even things like one of the questions that came up was around how do I do advanced analytics with this data? I mean, an application I absolutely love is Full Circle Insights. Actually, it's a data layer on top of Salesforce campaigns that allows you to build models for tracking which campaign is this deal being attributed to? Was it just this pay-per-click ad, or was it these other 4 ads that they were talking, that they were touched by? So, the bottom line is looking at it's easy to just think of one piece of the puzzle. What I would encourage you to do is really think about how these pieces come together to tell a whole story. So that you're getting the data, because at the end of the day, data is actually what's going to make you successful in these efforts. So with that data, the final piece to think about is metrics, because without metric, this is all really for naught, because it's great to go spend money, but your boss, or if you own your business, if you can't prove the ROI, well then why are we doing this, right? So, traditional email tools and, Google AdWords will tell you really basic level metrics like opens, clicks, and registrations. Now, don't get me wrong, you need those things, but we need to go a level or two further. We need to understand which ones are leading to closed deals. How often, how are these people progressing through the funnel? When are they becoming patients, and what's it taking to get them there? Because then the beauty is, if I could tie this directly to an ROI, then I could say, okay, if I invest $50,000 here in lead nurturing and generating this content, but I generated $1 million in business, what's the problem, right? At that point, this is basic business 101. Again, tying back to the unified platform, we're able to get that data. When working with the Salesforce platform, especially, we're going to tie that to closed deals and opportunities if you're using Salesforce. So we have that 360-degree view and that 360-degree reporting mechanism. That is just awesome to make sure that you're getting the ROI on your investment. So here's just a sample of the marketing automation dashboard. This is actually from Pardot in Salesforce. Even though there are 2 pieces to Salesforce, there's the Marketing Cloud and Pardot. This is talking about how people on the left-hand side, how are they moving through the funnel? Like, how many leads are we getting inbound from different campaigns? They call them prospects. How many of them are becoming marketing qualified leads? That's when you're passing them over to sales. So I'm going to actually track that and measure that in an automated fashion. I'm going to talk about which ones have been handed over to sales to to be a closed deal, and then how many are we actually winning, right? So at the end of the day, I could say, okay, this is how many visitors we had to the website, how many prospects we created, and we closed in this situation $58,000 in revenue. We don't know in this scenario how much we invested, but again, we have that information and that data, and we'll create dashboards in Salesforce.com. What I love about these two systems kind of coming together is that we could tie this directly to sales, and any reporting mechanism that might be lost here, you have a great reporting engine that could touch across all these different mechanisms that we could build reports on to get you what you need. And then we're able to talk even about velocity. How quickly am I getting these deals through the funnel? Am I getting a prospect in? It's taking me a year to close them. My gosh, unless you're closing like multi-million-dollar deals, that's a long time, right? You need to understand that to better manage your business and your cash flow. And that's where these reporting dashboards are invaluable.
And then, now that you've got all this data, it can be either overwhelming or it can inform your campaign. So what we recommend doing is, wash, rinse, repeat. Continually, use this data to improve the patient journey and your conversion rates. So, look at both what is working and what's not working, and look at these things over time too. Oftentimes, in marketing, if the business owner or maybe a office manager is running marketing, it can be very tempting to try something once, and if it doesn't work out, they abandon it. So look at these things over time, and then from a scoring perspective, look at how qualified the leads are that are coming in. Where do they fall in the patient journey? Then under attribution, figure out where the majority of your leads are coming from. What channel or web page is most effective at converting? You may find that people are getting to your website, they're interested in whatever offer you maybe shared through direct mail or Facebook or whatever it may be. They may be interested in your offer, but they get to your website and they're just not converting. So that's one thing that you could maybe look at the content on the page that they're landing on. And then, like I said, from a content perspective, if you're blogging, if you've got web content, look at what content is receiving the most engagement from your audiences and optimize that. And then same thing with messaging. Use the data that you're getting to inform the messages that you're using to communicate with your different audiences that we talked about earlier. Which ones are resonating best? If you've got a campaign for, Botox, if you're using, is it the offer that's most interesting? Is it the message that is most interesting? Is it more an educational focus around, oh my gosh, what are you going to do to me when I come in for Botox? Maybe you could provide a video that makes people not as scared to come in for the first time.
I think the bottom line, Brianna, as you kind of talk about this is a journey. When we talk wash, rinse, repeat, it's never, it's a journey, and keep going. Start small, look for quick wins, and then grow. And again, measure. As you see ROI, things are going to work and be really good, and things aren't going to work, and that's okay. As long as you're learning from that and measuring, then you can improve, and that's really what we focus on and working with people is helping them get there. But again, the right technology in place is absolutely critical to getting there. So we're about to move into the question period here, and we've been getting a couple in already. If you have questions, again, go to the GoToWebinar screen, and there's a question section. Just type it out and hit submit. We're going to dive into that momentarily. And again, any questions that you submitted online in that initial survey, we're going to try to get to some of them. But in the meantime, just to close things out, a lot with these questions, working with Salesforce, and first of all, thanks to them for inviting us to come talk today. We really appreciate it, and sharing our experience over the last several years and working on their solutions. But we're happy to get together if you're interested or want to learn or do an assessment of where you're at today. Brianna, myself, working with the Salesforce team, are happy to get together with you and just chat about where you're at in your journey and what value these types of systems can add, and kind of what that next step is and what that looks like. So we'll be reaching out with Salesforce over the next several days just to reintroduce ourselves and see if you are interested in, again, sitting down just for an hour to talk about what some of your pains are and how they might be addressed. Just to follow into that, we're always happy to answer questions. We're going to provide our email addresses at the end. shoot us an email. There's a lot of just quick technical questions that were sent my way. I'll be following up on those. Again, we're going to post a response to the questions on my blog, and I'll have the URL at the end of this. So let's get going with the questions that are coming in so far, and we'll go from there.
So far we've got.
So here's one. What types of content drive patient engagement in the process, and where can a practice get educational material to send out?
Oh, that's an interesting one. So there's different types of patients like to engage with content in different ways. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's important to think about all the different types of ways that people like to learn. So people may want to read something, they might want to watch something, and depending on your audience, you also want to take into account, their age, their gender, and things like that when you're putting together content pieces. People's attention spans are so short these days too that even a quick image or an infographic that you can provide that's educational in nature would be really helpful. And then where could a practice get educational materials? So depending on the type of practice, you could get educational materials from some of your vendor partners, maybe perhaps, I know for some of our clients, we pull together, for example, a dermatology client, we would pull together some before and after photos from the different, injectable providers and things like that. There's a lot of content that's available out there. Or in the same example, from a dermatologist perspective, you could go to, I'm trying to think, like skincancer.org and pull some of their content, as long as you, of course, reference that that's where you pulled it from. There's so much content that's available that you could use, and it could be useful to your patients. You can just curate it on their behalf.
Yeah, I think the big point to keep in mind with that is, what strategy are you going after, right? It's one thing to say, I need content, but going back to some of the points you raised, what are we trying to accomplish with that, right? Is this just developing content for content's sake? What are the segments? How are we delivering it? And what is our goals with that? And that's something, when Brianna and I talk to clients, it's always, okay, let's not just develop something. What are we trying to do, and who are we talking to, and how are we talking to them about it?
And where are they in their journey too, right? So what's next? So how do you deal with, let's see, how do you target and maintain an accurate contact list without a lot of database maintenance? How do you target and maintain an accurate contact list without a lot of database maintenance?
Yeah, so a lot of this, a dirty database has really implications on the sales level and on the marketing level. So we really need to think strategically about how to do that. The beauty of working with marketing automation systems is you're able to give people the opportunity to update their information. So when you are passing them information through forms, they can actually update that information, right? So they could say, oh, my last name changed because they got married, or their address changed. So again, if you're delivering the right content, people want to build a relationship with you. They're going to be updating that. And then, by the way, through that integration we're talking about, that is going to be passed on. So sales is going to be having that information. Also, database hygiene becomes really important. So let's identify through a process. Typically when we're onboarding new customers, we're looking to say, through some outbound campaigns, let's clean out all the garbage. Typically coming in, like, again, I have another client right now where about 30% of their data on the first pass was just hard bounced emails, which means those emails don't exist anymore. If you keep communicating with them and poor email addresses, you risk becoming a spammer. So what we're going to do is go and clean that out. We're going to clean it out in the CRM system if they have the CRM system. Oh, and then, by the way, if there's other backend systems where that's sitting there, we're going to get rid of that too. So that becomes really important in keeping that and putting a strategy in place to keep data management and data hygiene.
So another question is, let's see.
So here's one. Absent of online appointment request or online schedule, what content is most valuable for lead generation? What's the strongest call to action for patients? Download a white paper, get brochure.
So let me read this again. Absent of online.
So in my experience, people always love free advice, free things that are low risk, right? This, you think about a risk profile, it's easy to get, our goal here as marketers is to start getting them engaged in a dialogue, right? And what's low risk? I'm doing some work actually with an attorney right now, and he's giving out free 15-minute consultations, which is, okay, they're getting 15 minutes of his time, and he'll talk to them about whatever. And people get questions answered, but now you're top of mind, right? You are the person that you have a relationship with. So that next step becomes really important. So in my experience, especially now, people want something. So giving them something, white papers are good for certain areas, but that's what I've found in my practice.
Yeah,
Brianna, what about from your side?
Like I mentioned, people just have really short attention spans these days. I think, if your service is a procedure-based service, for example, you want to, the type of content that you can provide would be to answer the frequently asked questions. That's a really good place to get some really relevant content. Is what are the types of things that people ask on a regular basis when they come in? So address any of those, especially in the exam room, address any of those up front, and it makes people a little less wary about coming in and taking that next step and making an appointment, because they know what's going to happen when they walk into the exam room. Let's see what else we have.
So I'm getting some technical questions in here. Yeah. We'll post those to the blog.
How about, you can talk about
that's pretty technical.
Yeah, that's technical.
So tips on producing interest through emailing. I think we've talked a lot about that.
I think at the end of the day, increasing your interest in emails, and especially your click-through rate in emails, just really using that segmentation model to provide highly relevant and timely content. So for example, if you are a OB-GYN practice and you've got a pregnant mother, walking them through the life cycle of her pregnancy, you would want to provide different timely content along the way that's relevant and helpful for her in those different times. So that's an example of, if you've got something that's so relevant to share, that type of content is going to help, convert.
And I guess the point from my standpoint from the technology is test. I'm working on a webinar right now, series with a client, and we sent out 3 different emails. Well, one of them had double the click-through rates and registration rates than the other ones. I mean, that's fantastic, but having the right technology in place where you quickly do A/B testing easily, and that's down to the subject line, right? Subject line is the most important part for emails. So, getting down to, do we use symbols? Do we mention webinar? The most valuable part in this one was we used a woman's name that really had industry buzz. So we put that in there, and boom, registrations went doubled. That's a huge win. But if we're not testing, you don't know. So that's my recommendation on that piece.
And of course, in everything that we've said today, and in all of your campaigns, everyone on this call knows that there are certain things that we can and can't do from a marketing perspective with regards to HIPAA and CMS guidelines and things like that. So keep those things in mind as you build out your campaigns and build out your marketing automation strategy, because of course, we do have constraints, but there are ways that we can work around them in a general sense.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I think, obviously working in this space, that always needs to be top of mind in terms of which data is shared in systems, and making sure that we're in full compliance. And that's something with Brianna's experience is always working through. So I think do we have any more questions? Last call. I think we have a couple more here that are a little more specific. Is there anything else there, Brianna?
No, most of the other ones that we're getting are pretty technical in nature. So as Christopher mentioned, we'll try to follow up and address some of these through our blogs and share that information with you afterwards. But
so I think the one, just in closing out, is a question about UTM tags, which are urchin tracking module tags, and setting up a vanity URL. So a vanity URL, just for people that want to know, is when you're using a third-party service, be it Salesforce or any other email service, it lets you mask the URL that you're driving people to for a landing page. So it doesn't look like it's coming from, whether it's Salesforce or MailChimp or anything. It says your name, so people don't get confused. That's done on your IT side, on your DNS. So just talk to your IT team or your web server they'll be able to set that up for you. And then UTM tags, there's plenty of articles online on setting those parameters. What you need to do is just set those parameters on the referring URL. It should be easy to append the referring URL by adding those parameters on there. If you email me direct, I'll send you an article on how to set those up.
Great.
All right, guys. Well, thanks very much for the time. Again, we'll be shooting out. Feel free to email us with any questions. We'll be posting some answers to some of these other questions on my blog, which is invatosolutions.com/blog. I'll be sending out that URL. And thanks for all the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.